Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to do a little bit of map study. I've got my NAVIONICS boating app here, and right now I'm kind of doing a little bit of research on the Lake Eufaula, Oklahoma tournament coming up. But, you know, since we're in that transition from spring to summertime patterns, you know, this is a key time of the year to really start brushing up on your offshore fishing and just kind of picking out some spots, some offshore structure that might be productive. And so I spend a lot of time on my NAVIONICS app on my iPad. It's a really good way to do some research and really, you know, get some ideas as to where I'm going to fish next. Yeah, so I just wanted to share with you guys some of my principles for what I look for this time of year when you're talking about fish that had previously, within the last month, been in the backs of these creeks, spawning these creeks and bays, and now they're starting to work their way out. So let's go ahead and turn on the screen record here so you guys can see what I'm looking at on my screen here. And so here we are. We've got Bugs Island. You know, Bugs Island, I chose this because Bugs Island's got a lot of really cool structure on it. You know, a lot of gradual sloping points, shoals, humps. You know, there's a lot going on here. So the first thing that I really look for, because it can be very, very overwhelming, just, you know, if you're going out there just to find fish on points, well, lake like Bugs Island, you could go for a year and still not, you know, fish every single point on this lake. So it's really important for you to be very selective and choosy when it comes to the points that you go fish. And so one of the principles to narrow things down, and you know, obviously you're going to be missing good points if you just use this principle, but the way that I break down a lake is I want to get myself in the ballpark first, and then once I start, you know, finding the more obvious areas, then I start branching off and try to find some of the less obvious things that may not exactly fit into this kind of process, this template. But essentially, the first thing I do when I look at a body of water, maybe it's brand new to me, maybe I've been there a couple times, but I don't know it very well, is I look for the best spawning areas. On Kerr or Bugs Island, easily you can look at it, and down by the dam, and this is kind of what I missed at the tournament that we had down there, kind of down by the dam, you've got a lot of really good spawning habitat. You've got good gradual sloping contours. You've got lots of pockets, lots of bays and creeks and things that allow those fish to get into protected areas and spawn. And so once you do that, and it's plentiful. There's some lakes that don't have nearly the amount of good spawning habitat, but there's just no shortage, especially here in this Nutbush region. This creek right here, there is just no shortage of good spawning habitat. So once I find an area that looks like it has probably a likelihood of having a huge population of fish because of good spawning habitat, then I start looking at the creeks that have the best spawning, you know, grounds. So really, back here, it's pretty equal overall. But let's take this creek for instance. So this creek, you know, you've got a lot of really good spawning pockets that have those gradual sloping contours. It's nice and shallow. I know it's clear water down here just because I've been there. So what I like to do is start figuring out where those fish may be going after they spawn. So they may be spawning in the back of this pocket. Let's kind of go here. So they may be spawning in the back of this creek or in this pocket, or, you know, even in this tiny little pocket or something like this. So where are they going to go first after they spawn? Okay, they want to make it out to the main creek or the main lake after that, because that's where they're going to be able to feed throughout the summer. So the first thing I do is I start looking for secondary points. Secondary points are inside these pockets. They're not the main creek or the main lake points. They're inside these pockets, so they're the closest to the spawning areas. So a point like this, it may look really subtle, but a point like this or a point like this, something like this, those are going to be little spots where those fish are going to stop first. Okay, but there may be only a narrow window of time where those fish are going to be stopping on those secondary points. Usually it's right after the spawn or even right before the spawn. But eventually what those fish are going to do is they're going to get out to these nice main lake, gradual sloping shoals, points, and humps. This right here is kind of like a hump. It's kind of a mix of a hump and a point because you got this saddle here. You got shallow water towards the shoreline, you got a deeper saddle, and then it comes back up shallow again. So I would kind of consider this a hump more so than a point. Now the fish can sometimes hold on the shallower point close to the shoreline. They may hold on the saddle, especially if there's some current running over it, or they may be out on the tip of this point. You have to kind of check each of those regions. And if it's too shallow for you to idle, fish the point. Maybe you throw a Carolina rig or drag a shaky head or a drop shot or something like that. Maybe throw, if it's shallow enough, definitely throw a topwater this time of year, like a walking bait, a Zero Spook. This is the type of area that the fish that spawned in the back of this creek, in all these little pockets, all these little areas, they're going to end up, the majority of them are going to end up on this main lake structure where they can feed. And the reason why structures like this are so important, because everybody talks about points, humps, and ledges and things like that. The reason why all these types of structure are important is primarily because it allows the fish to feed more effectively, to hunt more effectively. So essentially, you've got bait fish that their comfort zone is out here, out deep. However, they will, when they get close to this structure, essentially you've got ascending structure or ascending contour lines coming up here, and what that's doing is it's condensing those bait fish into a smaller water column. So those bass can really corral those bait fish. That's exactly what they're using it is. They're using it as a way to condense them into a smaller area to be more effective at feeding. That's why you see a lot of fish schooling up towards the surface, because they're condensing the fish to the surface, and that's how they can get those bait fish. So that's understanding the reason why fish use structure will help you kind of recognize the type of structure that is going to be best. This lake is, you look at this lake and it's really hard to kind of to wrap your head around the best points. And that's kind of one of the frustrating things about a lake like Bugs Island, is the fact that there is no shortage of spawning habitat and there's no shortage of really, really good points. So finding the right points is kind of a matter of figuring out the right depth zone. So you want to start finding structure that is in different depth zones, and once you start hitting on the right depth zone that the majority of the fish are holding in, then you can start using your maps to find other similar type of points that may meet that right depth zone with the right type of contours. But really, for me, when it comes to map study this time of year, it's all about, and some lakes are easier to break down. Now that I've kind of dove into Bugs Island, I could see how it would be pretty difficult to pick out some key structure, because there's just so much really good looking stuff. But one of the biggest keys to finding really good points is not necessarily the points themselves, but number one, where the points are emanating from, or close to, like the spawning areas we're talking about, but also what's on the points. could be stumps, it could be rock piles, it could be brush piles. All of those secondary attractors are going to make these points even better. So a lot of these points, what I'll do is I'll idle them, and if there's like a little bit of a rocky shoal that's on top of one, or brush piles, or lots more stumps, that is going to be one that I'm definitely going to want to try, see if there's fish on it, and it's just those little differences that really make a huge difference when it comes to finding the right type of structure. But anyways, guys, the key principles that I carry with me during this time of year is find the good spawning habitat, the good spawning areas first, and then once you find those good spawning areas, you've already found a population of fish that lives in that region. Now you just need to kind of work your way out and figure out what structure they're going to stop on, that they're going to, and then where they're going to end up during the summertime patterns. Anyways, guys, hopefully this helps you kind of break down a new body of water. Hopefully it made a little bit of sense. And if you have any questions, drop a comment below. Also, make sure you like, share, subscribe. Trust the process. I'm going to see you out on the water. Take care.